Can you elaborate on what will happen with carbon tax revenue when you say it goes directly back to islanders? What do you mean? And what would happen with what we have now, the 3 cent reduction on gas prices?
Sure. We know that the most effective and the most efficient way to reduce carbon emissions is to put a price on carbon and then let the markets decide how best to accomplish that goal. We also know that the best thing to do with the revenues collected from carbon pricing, from a carbon tax, is to give it directly back to islanders, either in the form of tax relief, or we have decided that we will give it the entire amount back in the form of dividends. And the way that ours is structured, low-income islanders would actually, because low-income islanders have less of a carbon footprint than high-income islanders, and there's a very clear correlation between income and carbon footprint, then low-income islanders will actually end up with more money in their pocket through the way that we have organized a carbon tax than they do today. That's entirely different from the Liberal plan, which gives the money back to those who have caused the pollution, in essentially making it completely ineffective. What we need, the carbon tax is there not as a revenue generating tool. The carbon tax is there to change behavior, to put in price signals, to encourage people to make good choices. But when we give the money back to encourage those same people to make the same choices they're making today, then it is, as one economist here on PEI described, gratuitously stupid. Our plan is not gratuitously stupid. It creates the incentives towards better behavior, whilst protecting particularly vulnerable islanders here on PEI.
So is there a portion of this that's going into a small business tax? Because the small business tax is in the climate section there.
Yes, it is. And so the initial plan is to introduce a 0.5% small business tax, which is also a strong recommendation we've heard from the Chambers of Commerce and the recent advocacy group that represents the business organisations from across the province. But we need to be mindful of our commitment to ensure that we can measure and manage that impact. So we'll start with that one, see how that goes, and hopefully continue to sort of balance out the impact and the challenges that small businesses may face. In addition, we also have obviously the marked fuel exemption for agriculture, and we have been in negotiations with the Federation of Agriculture and other bodies, including the NFU, around the need to sort of revisit those exemptions. So there's a lot of work that would need to be done afterwards to make sure that that's done in consultation. But the short answer is protecting the cash flow for small business owners and for farm operations is a critical part of this approach.
But is the small business tax, is that being funded by carbon tax revenues?
Yeah, so there's 10% of the revenue that would be redirected to support that expenditure, with the 90% remaining is going directly to individuals. And then you also keep in mind that in terms of sort of other supports, it's not only just about the cash flow of revenue in, revenue out, but it's also how do we help people reduce their overall expenditures, both from residential and business. And so things like our small loan program to expand provision of solar energy fit-ups across residential spaces, small business and agricultural is actually going to have a really big impact as well, where people can actually get access to funds to begin to sort of really heavily invest into solar, and that investment is a long-term value to their property as well. So there's a win-win for that side, that we begin to really see a reduction in other places in terms of the expenditures that you have to do basic things like heating.
I'd just like to add one thing to that, because of course today, particularly on the day that the carbon tax was implemented for those provinces who did not come up with their own plan, there's a sense that perhaps the carbon tax is the single way to deal with climate change, and it's not at all. It's one of the tools in the toolbox, but Hannah mentioned the loan program for installing small-scale solar across the island, something that's sadly been lacking for the 12 years of this Liberal administration. There are other measures, incentives for electric vehicles. There will be rebates to enable people to put chargers, level 2 chargers in their homes. And there was a lot of talk about the level 3 chargers, the very expensive ones that are $50,000 a pop. But 90% of the charging of electric vehicles happens at home or at work. And that's why we have directed the funds the funds that government will use to aid people in home chargers and installing chargers at work, so that they're practically useful for people. They're also, by the way, a lot cheaper at a couple of thousand a pop. So you get a lot bigger bang for your buck, plus it's a much better use of government funds to incentivize people to do the right thing. This is not about punishment. This is about moving our society towards being carbon neutral, which we all know we have to do. If you love your children, we need a carbon neutral society very quickly.
And another thing to add to that, when we've talked about the integration and the holistic approach of the platform, is that we also need to think about the way that people actually move and travel and live their lives. So you'll see that there are supports in there for free transit passes for social assistance clients and seniors to take better advantage of our public transit. At the same time, we need to expand the public transit. So we have a plan to begin immediately revising the old report on how to do a public transit system across the province, and then know how to roll that out. And so it's in our 10-year goal is to be able to have a provision of public transit across the province, which will be another fundamental part of how do we transition away from single vehicle use. So part of that longer term story in the platform is also part of that path of how do we help people make those changes in their lives, and how do we as a government support that happening.